into the details, that the Gemara says that by great tzaddikim we find that their day of passing and the day of birth is exact same day, which is an indication that just like their life physically was a perfect circle, the same day, spiritually it was also a perfect life. So those are the 2 dates of the 9th of Kislev. The 10th of Kislev is the day that the Mittel Rebbe was arrested. He wasn't arrested because he passed a red light. He was arrested because he was being accused that he wants to make a revolution against the Tsar. And this was done by Jews who were religious Jews, but very much against the Hasidic movement. And they figured that if they, God forbid, could eliminate the head, they'll eliminate the whole movement. So they filed a false accusation. He was arrested. And the day that he went out of jail, which became a Yom Kippur, is the 10th of Kislev. The 14th of Kislev, that's the day that our Rebbe got married with the Rebbetzin, and that was in 1928. The 19th of Kislev also has more than one event. 19th of Kislev in 1772 was the day that the second leader of Hasidus, the Mazritcha Magid, passed away. His histalkus was on Chodesh Kislev. And Alter Rebbe was near him because he was one of his closest students. And he held the Alter Rebbe's hand. And he said to him, this day is our Yom Tov. And exactly, I think it's 57 years later, Alter Rebbe was also arrested and being accused of making a revolution, organizing a revolution against the Tsar. And he was freed from jail. And the day that he was freed from jail, which became a big Yom Tov, is the 19th of Kislev.
The 19th of Kislev, the Mitzvah Rebbe was freed?
No, the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad.
What year was it, secular?
What year was?
Was this like secular years?
The second year is right next to it. It says 1772. That's when the Maggid was installed. The Alter Rebbe went out of jail in 1798. The 20th of Kislev was the day that the Tanya was printed for the first time in history. This Tanya, which became the source of inspiration for hundreds of thousands of people from that time and on, it was printed on the 20th of Kislev. That's a story in itself. Each one of these boxes has a story in itself. And in 1798, I wrote down 2 dates, 19th of Kislev and the 20th of Kislev. Because Alter Rebbe did go out of jail, but something happened and he wasn't able to leave completely. So when we get there, we'll talk about that story. What's the 27th of Kislev? The Alter Rebbe was in jail after he was freed from jail, and there was a big celebration. 2 years later, he was in jail again. Again, they tried another way to arrest him and to try to chas v'shalom see that he would be eliminated. But he went out of jail, and he was in jail the same time of the year, but he went out of jail on the 27th of Kislev, which is also known as the third Hanukkah candle night.
Sorry, but on the 27th of Kislev, the Alter Rebbe was the Alter Rebbe that
went out of jail the second time, yeah.
Okay.
The 29th of Kislev is the fifth candle of Hanukkah. Some people say we celebrated because the Alter Rebbe was in jail and freed, but also some Hasidim were arrested with him, and they were freed a few days later. The Rebbe once wrote that the Alter Rebbe's release from jail also came in stages. Something happened on the third night of Hanukkah, and something happened on the fifth night of Hanukkah. So they're both related the second time the Alter Rebbe was in jail. It just reminds me of when you look at this list over here, the Alter Rebbe was in jail, the Mittel Rebbe was in jail, Alter Rebbe in jail one time, in jail a second time. By the way, every single Rebbe of Chabad was arrested.
Why?
But not in jail. The other Rabbeim were arrested, what we call house arrest, which means the person is confined to their home and they can't leave. And then they were released. So it's not as severe as being in jail. So I heard the story from someone who was there when it happened, that he was sitting by the table with the previous Rebbe, And he was celebrating the day that he was released from jail in Russia, which was the 12th of Tammuz. But the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he was released from jail, that was the 7th time that he was arrested. And this arrest was more severe than the other ones, but it was the 7th time. So there was an older chassid sitting there, had a little bit of a sense of humor. And he said to the Rebbe, it looks like all the Rebbes of Chabad have made it a custom to get arrested. But 7 times, that's showing off a little bit too much. He used a term in halacha called migzik yura, where sometimes you're not supposed to do things because it's like showing off. They said that's really going overboard. Because the Rebbe appreciated his humor. So I want to talk now specifically about Rosh Chodesh Kislev. What happened, how it happened. And Rosh Chodesh Kislev, to many of us, is very different than all other Hasidic holidays. For the simple reason that all the other holidays happened years ago, and this is something which we experience, at least people my age or a little bit younger, because Rosh Chodesh Kislev happened Topshin Lamed Ches, 1977. So anyone who is able to understand what's going on in 1977, all those people experience what happened, and I'll go over the general picture of what was going on. First of all, I want to say our Rebbe was different than other Rebbes in the sense that he was physically very strong. Like the Mitzel Rebbe was always weak. There are many stories of how he fainted. He had a weak heart. He had a weak lung, and he lived to the age of 54. The Rebbe Maharash was very often not well. He lived to the age of 48. The Rebbe Rashab, which is the 5th Rebbe of Chabad, at the age of 9, the doctors already said to him that, not age of 9, the age of 28, the doctors told him that doesn't look like he's going to make it. And he wrote a will for his son, the next Rebbe, who was only 9 years old at the time. It's a published booklet called Chanoich Nar, all about how to educate to the Rebbetzin and how she should educate her son. And a second time, later, when the Rebbe Rashab was 47 years old, again, the doctors told him that he only has a few months to live. And thank God he outlived that. He lived to the age of 60, but he was always weak and not well. The Frierdiker Rebbe was also not so strong, but especially after his arrest in Shpalerke, which is the Russian jail, he was only 47 years old at the time. He was physically broken. By the time he came to America at age 60, if you saw the videos, he's already in a wheelchair. Our Rebbe was physically very strong. He didn't do a lot of exercise. He didn't eat a lot of food. He didn't do a lot of sleeping, but he was physically very strong. We never saw sick. We just never saw that. So what happened on Simchas Torah to all of us was pretty much of a shock. The Rebbe never went. All the Rebbes of Chabad, as far as we know, there were times where they left the city and they went somewhere in the country area. In Russia, it's called dacha. Go away to a place to be a little bit more relaxed and not to do the regular routine. Of course, they didn't waste any time. It was a relaxing from the regular routine. Our Rebbe hardly ever left his Crown Heights, hardly ever. Why am I saying hardly ever? Because 3 times he left Crown Heights. Apparently, the Rebbetzin asked people to beg the Rebbe to come visit the kids in the camp, upstate New York. So go out, at least get some fresh air. So the Rebbe went there 3 times. When he asked the Rebbe to go the 4th time, he said, no, I still didn't even make up the time from a few years ago that I lost, so I'm not going again. So the Rebbe never went on any trips. He had a schedule, which is a schedule that it's hard to believe that someone could keep. 3 nights a week, the Rebbe would meet with people, Yechidus, and that started at 8 at night and went on to 3, 4 in the morning. The Rebbe was back in 770 every morning about 10:30, 11 o'clock. On a regular night, a regular day, the Rebbe was there all day, went home, came back an hour later and stayed till 11, 12 o'clock at night on a regular day. And basically, this was a shock what actually happened. It was during Hakafos, and as I explained when we spoke about this Tishrei time, that the Rebbe would stand up front in his place, and from there he would sort of encourage the singing and the dancing. He himself danced with the Sefer Torah only twice, the first of the seven and the last of the seven. But all those in the middle, he was stood in his place, he would turn around, praise the crowd, and with his hands, he would wave his hands and encourage the singing. So this was the fourth hakafa. The Rebbe was facing the crowd, and I remember I was looking at the Rebbe, I was standing pretty close. And then all of a sudden, I saw something which I hope never ever to see again. The Rebbe's face turned white. Literally, as if you're standing in front of the window and somebody draws down a shade. That's what it looked like. Everything just went white. And the Rebbe turned around to sit down. Immediately, this one ran over, that one ran over. There were some doctors in the crowds, and they were, what's going on? What's the Rebbe feeling? I am sure the Rebbe knew that he's going through a heart attack, but the Rebbe insisted that he finish Hakafa. The first thing that happened was they asked everybody to leave. You know what 770 looks like when it's packed? There's no air to breathe. In such a situation, so everybody ran outside. Of course, there are always those people that they can't do that. They have to watch what's happening. But they eventually got everybody outside. And in fact, some people were so desperate, they broke the windows to the women's shul, which doesn't lead to the outside, it leads to the inside. But they broke the windows to get more air. But nobody knew what to do. Everybody was very confused. But we found out later that the Rebbe insisted to finish the Hakos. Not only that, he also insisted to do the seventh Hakafa. Now, the seventh Hakafa he did with his brother-in-law. He and his brother-in-law would dance together. So I guess he understood that this is really, the Rebbe is going above and beyond. So after turning around once or twice, he pretended that he has no more strength, and it stopped. After that, the Rebbe went up the staircase, which heart attack patients are not allowed to walk up the staircase. Went up the staircase, went to his room, went to the sukkah, and they begged the Rebbe a doctor should examine him. He said, soon after Kiddush. Went to the sukkah. Maybe the Rebbe should make Kiddush on grape juice, or that make Kiddush on grape juice on wine. Make Kiddush on wine, and ate something, then went to his room. And only then did he allow a doctor to examine him. And of course, they said right away that the Rebbe suffered a heart attack. And people immediately started to call their cardiologists. They can come to the Rebbe. Nobody knew what to do. The Rebbe didn't have a cardiologist. And the different doctors that came, they had different opinions, but one thing, all the doctors agreed that the Rebbe has to go to a hospital immediately. And the Rebbe said, he insisted, I am not going. I'm not going to the hospital. What was the Rebbe's reason? On the surface, it seemed to be the reason was, once you go to the hospital, you no longer have any control on exactly what you do, what you don't do, because now you're under their jurisdiction. But we once had one of the doctors that was involved, his name was Dr. Feldman. Unfortunately, he's no longer here, but he once spoke at the school, and he said that Rebbe told him that he wanted to be in 770, he wanted to be in this room, because that'll do more for him than any hospital. In other words, it was understood that spiritually, he would find more bracha being in 770. I mean, no other person would ever think of such a thing, but of course, this was the Rebbe, and the Rebbe chose to do that. Some of the doctors were furious. They actually left. They said, we're not going to stay and take any responsibility for a patient that want to go to the hospital. In the meantime, everybody in 770 was waiting to hear what's happening. And the Rebbe gave a message. Everybody should go home. Everybody should eat their Yom Tov Suda and enjoy Yom Tov. It's Simchas Torah today. A lot of people left because that's what the Rebbe wanted. A lot of people stayed just to see what was going to be. 5 o'clock in the morning, the Rebbe had a second heart attack. This heart attack was very severe, not like the first one. Severe heart attack. And someone called a doctor who lives in Chicago. His name was Dr. Weiss. He's the head of the cardiology in that hospital there. And they asked him if he would come. And the main thing was the Rebbe insists not going to a hospital. would he agree to treat the Rebbe without going to a hospital? So he said he would on one condition. What's the condition? That all the equipment that they have in the hospital, they should get it to 770. They should be able to use it. What?
Was this Cook County Hospital?
Which?
Cook County?
In Chicago? I don't know.
No, that's where my parents met.
You could probably look it up. Dr. Ira Weiss is his name. She lived in Below. And he said, he once again spoke publicly, and he said that within 24 hours, every single thing that you would find in the ICU was in 770. Somehow they got it from different hospitals. They brought it to 770. And, but it was still, you know, I want to tell you something. One of the things that he said was, you see him saying this on a video, probably you can go on Gem and you'll hear him saying it. He said, never in his entire career did he see such a damaged heart in a living person. And I remember him saying this, I heard him say that, I know the Rebbe performed a lot of miracles, but in my opinion, this miracle is bigger than all the miracles he performed. Like, according to the laws of nature, there's no way. Anyway, one of the interesting things that happened that night was they were trying to push that the Rebbe should go to the hospital. So one attempt was that one of the rabbanim, one of the rabbis, will tell the Rebbe that halachically he really needs to go to the hospital. So one of the rabbis came walking in, and before he opened his mouth, the Rebbe said, "Don't say anything, I'm not going to the hospital." That was over. Then
But why not?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
The Rebbe had his reasons, obviously.
Mm.
I don't know. It wasn't a regular reason. Obviously, something higher. You know.
But it's, I don't
I'll
know.
soon tell you. Yeah,
Mm.
I'll soon tell you. One of the people. There was a woman there that she used to work for the Rebbe's mother-in-law, and she was also there. She knew the Rebbe. She also came down and she said to the Rebbe, if a chassan would be in this condition, wouldn't you tell him to go to the hospital? I said, would he listen to me? She said, yes. So now listen to me also now as well. So, and this is the Rebbe communicating in a time when most people are probably not even conscious. And they told the Rebbetzin, one of the doctors was very harsh, told the Rebbetzin, you should know, you're the only one. And what happened was they gave the Rebbe an injection to sleep, apparently for the heart to calm down. And while the Rebbe was sleeping, now is the time that we can just take him to the hospital. But we need your okay. And then, in order to make his point more clear, he told the Rebbe, if God forbid anything happens, you'll be responsible because you didn't give the okay. Could you imagine such words? The Rebbe turned around, was facing the wall for a moment, and then she turned around and said, no, he's not going. I never did anything contrary to my husband's will, and won't do it. If he wants to be here, he's going to be here. And that was that. When they told the Rebbetzin how the Rebbe slept, I think usually they give this injection, the person sleeps for many hours. It's a very strong injection, it's supposed to calm down the heart. And when they told the Rebbe slept for 4 hours, her reaction was, meaning only 4 hours. 4 hours? He never slept so much in his life. Because the Rebbe's schedule was really day and night, and not so much with sleeping. One of the things that Dr. Ira Weiss said when he spoke publicly was that most people in that condition are not hardly conscious, and if they are conscious, they're hardly capable of thinking straight. The Rebbe was talking to him and giving him ideas, and he said the Rebbe was light years ahead of himself with the things that he was suggesting. To give an example, one of Rabbi Gron was the Rebbe's secretary, one of his children wrote that what happened was that 75% of the Rebbe's heart was damaged. Only 25% of the heart was functioning. And there was a doctor, his name is, let me look over here. His name seems to be he's considered one of the biggest or the biggest in America in cardiology. Bernard Loan from Boston University, Boston, and he's the one who invented, or he's the one who thought of the idea of giving shock treatment to the heart. And he was one of the biggest doctors. Because he's related to somebody in Crown Heights, they got him to come down to see the Rebbe. And he came to see the Rebbe. I don't know, at this point, he came a second time to visit, and he was telling the Rebbe that the 25% of the heart has to learn how to function without the other 3/4 of the heart. The Rebbe says, why? Why can't we bring back the other part of the heart back to functioning? And he said, it can't be, because the heart is like rubber. Once you stretch it, you can't make it rubber again. It's just stretched out. You can't change it. And the Rebbe said he doesn't see why. It's a living organ. You should be able to change it. And many years later, about 20 years later, this is one of the things that was written up in the medical magazines, that they found now a way that even a heart that was damaged through a heart attack, you're still able to bring it back. Like the Rebbe said to this person. So after this was happening on Simchas Torah, and at that time, it was Hakafis. The doctors wanted everyone to leave the building because it's too much noise. And the Rebbe said they should be there, they should dance and sing. And he said their singing is music to my ears, so sweet music to my ears. And they were singing, the Rebbe's teaching is Trag gut wird sein gut. You heard this many times. Think positive, be positive. So initially, everybody, when they were singing in Yiddish, the Rebbe soll sein gesund, which means like a prayer. The Rebbe should be gesund, should be healthy. And then somehow it got switched to the Rebbe is gesund. Not soll sein, not he should be healthy, he is healthy. And if we say that he's healthy, he'll be healthy. And that's what they were singing all night long, these words. And as Simchas Torah was coming to the end, the Rebbe told the doctors that he wants to speak to the Chassidim. Simchas Torah is going to be over, so you can make Havdalah, and you can speak on a microphone. He wants to speak from the room. The doctor said, no way. Heart patient just had a heart attack, a severe heart attack. It's like less than 48 hours. And the Rebbe said that he wants to speak. This is the time he always would see anything on the monitor that's anything that's a little bit of questionable. The Rebbe will agree to stop talking immediately. And the Rebbe agreed. And they gave the Rebbe 5 minutes. Anyway, the Rebbe started to speak. It was very exciting for everybody that we can hear the Rebbe's voice after everything that happened. Nobody knew what was going on. So the Rebbe started to speak. And it's interesting, again, the Rebbe's approach is just looking at things positive. How did the Rebbe begin his talk? It started off by saying, not like due to a medical condition, due to an illness, due to something that happened. The Rebbe just said, missing, lacking, absent, something not in order. Ultimately, this will only bring something more and greater. That's the way we should look at things. Which is also something that needs to be explained in more detail, and either we'll have a chance today, or otherwise we'll continue later in the month when we talk about the other Yom Tov. So that was the first time the Rebbe spoke. Instead of speaking for 5 minutes, the Rebbe spoke for 20 minutes. 20 minutes Sikha and a minor, and he Baruch Hashem, nothing went wrong, so the doctors didn't interrupt, but they were pretty surprised that he was able to speak for 20 minutes without anything. And from that time on, instead of Farbrengen Shabbos, the Farbrengen Shabbos is over from his room on the telephone, to the microphone. When Yontif was over, the Rebbe has a doctors for his letters. After Yontif, letters accumulated. And the doctor said, Rebbe, you have to relax. You just had this condition. One of the doctors wanted to make the Rebbe realize the reality of it, as if the Rebbe didn't realize, and said, you should know that 75% there could be a reoccurrence of such an attack. The Rebbe didn't answer. So he said, Rebbe, did you hear what I said? I heard what you said. You said that 25% of the cases it doesn't happen again. Which is again the Rebbe's way of looking at things. The glass is half full, not half empty. So the first time that the Rebbe came back downstairs to have it Farbrengen was on Chodesh Kislev. So that's like almost 2 months later. The Rebbe was wearing this monitor, but he spoke and went with the elevator, so it wasn't stressful in that sense. And the first time the Rebbe went down to the shul to daven, it was a half a year later. It was Pesach. Up until then, everything was upstairs because of not walking down the staircase. The Rebbe wanted to go to the oil very much, and they said to go out in the car and travel. The first time the Rebbe did go to the oil was on Hanukkah. The Rebbe went to the oil, and after the Rebbe came back, the Rebbe distributed Hanukkah dollars to everybody. Normally, when there's a line, you know what the line looks like. But who's going to stand on line? Make the Rebbe stand? So after the first 5 minutes, people didn't want to go over. In fact, some people who wanted to go over, other people pushed them away. The Rebbe noticed that, and the Rebbe was very upset and said, nobody should push anyone out of the way. I'm asking everyone to come over and take dollars. So a little bit more people came. Now, the halacha is that when a person is in danger, and Hashem saves them from danger, they should make a sudas edah, which means a meal of thanksgiving. That's why the whole United States had Thanksgiving a few days ago. They're a little bit off on the dates. They really wanted to make Rosh Chodesh Kislev. By the way, a lot of years, Thanksgiving or Rosh Chodesh Kislev come out on the same day. So it's you're supposed to make a meal. So when did the Rebbe make a meal? So a very interesting thing happened on the 8th day of Hanukkah. And at that time, the Rebbe was in his room, davened upstairs. We didn't see the Rebbe much because they didn't allow a lot of people to go upstairs. But Rabbi J.J. Hecht, who you heard a little bit about this Friday night, the Rebbe had a very unbelievable, unusual closeness with the Rebbe. The Rebbe called him into his room. And the Rebbe said, could you keep a secret? He said, yeah. I want you to go to the bakery and order X amount of a lot of challah and wine. And that was on the 8th day of Hanukkah, but no one should know about it. He understood the Rebbe was going to make it Farbrengen. No one should know about it, meaning he doesn't want the secretaries to know, he doesn't want the doctors to know, he didn't want anybody to stop him, so nobody should know about it. He asked the Rebbe, can I tell my son he's in Australia? No, can I tell my son he's in yeshiva? Apparently he was in Newark, in New Jersey, he would come here. The Rebbe said, when you tell a bacher, that's goes all the way to Australia. So then he asked him permission, could he tell his brother? He had a brother who lived in Flatbush. The Rebbe said, yes, you can tell him. In fact, where was I at the time? Whenever something happened, he said, where were I? I was in 770, downstairs. It was Hanukkah time. The place was empty. And someone who I used to teach Chassidus asked me, he says, he lived upstate New York, I'm in town now. So I said, come, 770, we'll learn. I'm in there sitting, and I actually see Rabbi Hecht's brother walking in. He walks in, he looks at the wall, looks at the ceiling, he walks back. I'm thinking, what is this guy doing? Nobody's there, nothing's happening. All of a sudden, the doors fly open. Hundreds of people come running in. Apparently, they just announced that the Rebbe is going to have a Farbrengen. The Rebbe wants everybody to wash. And that was the Rebbe's Haidah, it seems. And the Rebbe explained beautifully the connection between the 8th day of Hanukkah and the 8th day of Sukkot when this happened on the 8th day of Sukkot. And this was the 8th day of Hanukkah, how in Gemara and Torah we find that there's a connection between these 2 days. So the first time that the Rebbe actually walked out of 770 was not Rosh Chodesh Kislev, it was a few days earlier. Where did he go? He went to the library. The Rebbe's library is right next door, at 770. And at that time, another amazing thing happened, and that is that, again, connected to the library, the Frierdiker Rebbe was in Poland when the Second World War broke out. And he had thousands of books that in his very precious library. But in wartime, you can't take it with you. You can be limited in what you can take with you. Certain things were actual manuscripts of the Rebbeim he took with him. But other things he had to leave behind. And he left it, I think, in the American consulate in Poland. Anyway, after the war was over, they denied, and they said everything was destroyed, it doesn't exist, and it's over. And then one day, somebody who was a researcher said he was in one of the libraries in Poland, and he looked at microfilm, and when he looked at it, looked in like these Hasidic writings. And sure enough, they found out that the entire library is intact. And America, the State Department got involved, and eventually they brought it to America, and they brought it to the building next door to the Rebbe. Right then, right during this time. So the first place the Rebbe went was walked outside to see the Svarim in the library. And then was Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So, what happened before Rosh Chodesh Kislev. On Rosh Chodesh Kislev itself, that was the night, it was a Thursday night. Rosh Chodesh was on Friday. And the doctor said, now we can go home. And there were a lot of people outside. Apparently people heard about it before. And that night, they were Farbrengen, literally till the wee hours of the morning. The Rebbetzin said that she never doesn't remember any kind of celebration or rejoicing that she saw now. The last time she saw anything like this was when her father, the Frierdiker Rebbe, went out of jail in 1927. And this is what happened the first time Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And in Halacha, whenever a certain date happened, that people ask the question, okay, I can understand, we celebrate that the Rebbe lived more years, but after Gimel Tammuz, what's the point in celebrating something like that? It's we don't see the Rebbe anymore physically. There's two answers to that. Answer number one, it doesn't matter. We're still thanking Hashem for what happened. It's like somebody would say, why are we celebrating going out of Mitzrayim? We went into Golus again later. Why are we celebrating Hanukkah if we went into Golus again? The Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The answer is, nevertheless, it was a celebration. The second answer to that is that anything like this, something of this scale happens, that means something of this scale also happened spiritually. It was a very big change that took place on a higher spiritual plane, and there were things going on a higher level. And therefore, that is something which is eternal. That doesn't change. That means after an incident like the Alter Rebbe, we'll learn about this more. The Alter Rebbe went out of jail. It was in a sense the beginning of a new era. When the Mitzvah Rebbe went out of jail, it was the beginning of a new era. When the previous Rebbe went out of jail, it started a new era. And the same was with the Rebbe, that being not well and then having this miracle was also part of a process of, like we call it, darkness that comes before light. And to a certain extent, I know the Rebbe never made that connection, but Chassidim made the connection that the Rebbe's, shortly after this time, maybe 3 years later, that's when the Rebbe began to intensify the awareness and the emphasis on we want Mashiach now, and Mashiach, and then it became stronger and stronger from year to year. So this is a day that we thank Hashem for the miracles, but we also know that if this is a day that spiritually is a day of miracles, that means it also is conducive for more miracles to happen. And do we need a lot of miracles today, and we definitely need miracles of Geula. So hopefully that this month, I gave you a list. Hopefully we'll be able to add one more thing to the list. Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Tov Shin Pei Hei, 2024. Therefore, when I came to shul this morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, people are still bringing from last night. I have no idea how they do that, but that's what's going on. So I'm going to leave you to have a little bit of simcha with Kudim. I don't know if you know that in 770, Galant was there last night. The Sar B'Tachon of Israel came to speak at
Wow.
Farbrengen. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. It's on CLO. You
cool.
can see you can hear his speech.
Is it still here?
He heard his speech, and what did he say? Even though he's not that, whatever, he said that this war was totally miraculous, and it's only in the source of the soldiers, the source of all the good deeds that people do. He said, I felt clearly like I'm Hashem's messenger to make these things happen.
Wow.
What people who are in there, the more they know, the more they realize what kind of miracles happened here. Number one, what happened, and especially he said when we read the documents of what Hezbollah planned to do, not just planned, they had everything all ready, they had everything all set to go, the ammunition and Rahman al-Islam, what they found in their tunnels, what they're ready to do, what that would have meant, God forbid, October 7th would be almost like insignificant compared to what they were going to do had they joined. They were supposed to join on the same day. And we still don't know why they didn't actually do it. It was a miracle. So anyway, we should celebrate miracles and more miracles and
Amen.
celebrate the biggest miracle of all very soon.
Man, thank you.
Amazing. Amen. Baruch Hashem. Thank you.